Good evening to the weary, the wandering, and the ones still holding on. Tonight I will be reading from the compilation titled Outlaw Creative, The Geometry of Life. We will be hearing from the chapter titled Mirrors That Refuse Reflection. That being said, let's get started, shall we? Mirrors that refuse reflection. There are objects in the world that do more than serve a function. They become moral images. The mirror is one of them. It is never merely a tool for grooming. It is a theater of recognition, a promise in glass. One approaches it with an ancient expectation that what stands before it will, in some faithful proportion, be returned, not interpreted, not corrected, not devoured, returned. That is why the broken mirror is not the deepest horror. A broken mirror still reflects, though in shards. It may wound the image, but it does not abolish the pact. More frightening by far is the mirror that remains intact and yet refuses reflection. Smooth surface, polished frame, no crack to warn the hand away, but what it offers is not return. It receives the gaze and gives nothing back. Or worse, it gives back a surface stripped of human depth, a likeness emptied of witness. That is the true terror of the phrase. Not broken recognition, but recognition withheld by something designed to seem capable of it. A mirror that refuses reflection is not simply blind. Blindness would be one thing. Blindness is incapacity. What the phrase suggests instead is a kind of betrayal built into form. The object still stands under the sign of reciprocity. It still presents itself as an answering surface. But instead of returning, it swallows. Instead of showing, it absorbs. Instead of acknowledging presence, it converts presence into disappearance. That is why the line reaches beyond literal glass almost immediately. We know such mirrors. We have stood before them. Some are institutions, some are screens, some are relationships, some are social rituals, so polished by habit that they appear to offer recognition while in truth offering only intake. They take one's face, one's labor, one's story, one's ache, one's wit, one's style, one's grief, and return only the thinnest suggestion that one has been registered at all. Many people spend years before such mirrors and then wonder why they feel less real, less weighty, less accompanied in their own existence. The deepest human need hidden inside the figure of the mirror is not vanity, but confirmation. A child does not only look to see what he looks like, he looks to see whether he appears in a world held by another. Before literal mirrors there are parental faces. Before polished glass there is the first human gaze. That gaze says, if it is functioning well, there you are. I register you. You have contour. Your expression is not falling into the void. Your fear arrives somewhere. Your delight lands. Your distress is not merely noise. You have entered a field of mutuality. This is why withholding reflection wounds so deeply. It reaches backward into pre-verbal territory. It tells the soul, your signal did not land. Your face did not meet a face. Your appearance entered a medium that offers no return. And because human beings are interpretive creatures, we rarely stop with the fact of failed reflection. We internalize it. We ask not only, why was I not seen? But, what is wrong with me that even the mirror does not answer? The phrase is powerful because it understands that reflective failure is not always obvious. The surface may remain bright. That matters. If the glass were blackened over, the problem would declare itself too quickly. But the most dangerous mirrors retain the look of availability. They shine, they invite, they are framed beautifully. They seem built for reply. That is what gives them power. We continue offering ourselves to them because they look like answerable things. Think of the screen. The screen is one of the great modern mirrors that refuse reflection. It receives astonishing quantities of face, voice, confession, display, posture, wit, pain, vanity, declaration, seduction, grievance, aspiration, prayer, self-branding, self-disgust, and self-invention. It receives all of it. But to say it reflects us would be too generous. It metabolizes, it sorts, it amplifies certain contours and discards others. It gives back not a faithful image, but a processed remainder shaped by appetite, market, velocity, and system design. What returns is often a usable version of the self, a monetizable version, a visible version, a stimulative version, but not necessarily a true one. The screen says, in effect, I will show you what survives my mechanisms. That is not reflection. That is digestion. Or take the bureaucratic mirror. One submits forms, histories, causes, needs, wounds. The system receives them. But what comes back is category, code, eligibility, denial, intake number, appointment slot, case status. A life enters, a file exits. The system is not lying exactly. It is simply incapable of return at the level of personhood. It cannot reflect what it cannot afford to hold. Yet because it occupies the place of answer, people come away from it diminished, translated into abstractions they did not choose. Even intimate life is haunted by these mirrors. There are lovers who do not reflect but consume, friends who do not answer but absorb, conversations that seem reciprocal until one notices that nothing one says returns with added understanding, only vanishes into the other's self-concern. One leaves such exchanges mysteriously reduced, not always attacked. Attack is almost easier. At least attack acknowledges contour. No, one leaves unfleshed, as though some vital proof of existence has failed to make the trip back. That is the key distinction. A hostile mirror still reflects. It may reflect cruelly, but it engages. The mirror that refuses reflection is more unnerving because it produces ontological uncertainty. Was I here? Did I arrive? Did my expression enter another field at all? Or was I merely taken in as surface and quietly removed from myself? There is also a political dimension to the figure. Entire populations can be rendered before mirrors that refuse reflection. They appear in the culture only as stereotype, utility, threat, sentiment, demographic block, labor pool, target market, historical burden, or symbolic prop. Their complexity does not come back to them. Their face is received and translated into something less than face. One should be careful here, because the phrase can become melodramatic if applied without discipline. But its force remains. A society that cannot faithfully return the image of many of its members becomes a chamber of swallowed selves. And yet the phrase does not ask us merely to lament. It asks for discrimination. What counts as reflection, not flattery, not mirroring in the cheap therapeutic sense, not parroting. Reflection, in the deeper human sense, is a returning that preserves reality while adding witness. It says, I see what is before me, and I return it to you in a form you can inhabit more truthfully. A good friend does this. A real teacher sometimes does. A worthy critic. A lover on a serious day. A poem once in a while. Certain rooms, certain songs. Occasionally even the self, if one has suffered enough to lose interest in performance. The phrase therefore implies its own counter-image. Mirrors that do reflect. They are often duller than the bright false ones. Less glamorous, less immediately rewarding. A faithful mirror may not beautify, it may not flatter, it may not offer instant coherence, but it returns. That is the miracle. It gives the face back. It does not swallow the voice whole. It does not merely consume expression and convert it into system fuel. It lets the person know your signal landed in something capable of reply. There is a strange holiness in that. To be faithfully reflected is one of the quiet forms of grace, not because it feels nice, though sometimes it does, but because it restores proportion between self and world. It rescues a person from the suspicion that all expression vanishes into appetite. It says that human reality is not doomed to fall into polished hunger. This is why some of the truest mirrors are not literal mirrors at all. A field can do it. Music can do it. Sometimes a page can do it. An animal can do it in a limited and astonishing way. A dog looking at a wounded man may not understand his metaphysics, but it may return his existence with a kind of intact attention. There are moments when nature itself seems more reflective than society, because it does not ask us first to become content. And this leads to the final sting of the phrase. Perhaps the most dangerous mirror that refuses reflection is the self built under long exposure to other such mirrors. A person can become inwardly non-reflective. He can begin receiving his own feeling, thought, sorrow, and hunger only as intake, not as something to be returned with witness and form. He can swallow his own experience without understanding it. He can live as both subject and devouring surface. That is one of the hidden shapes of spiritual exhaustion, when the inner mirror no longer answers, and all that remains is consumption without recognition. So the moral labor here is double. One must learn to detect the surfaces that only swallow, and one must become, where possible, a different kind of surface for others. Not infinitely absorbent, not boundaryless, not a sponge for every passing crisis, but capable of return, capable of saying, with accuracy and weight, I see what stands before me. I will not consume it into my use. I will not flatten it into a category. I will not convert it into noise. I will give it back in a form that proves it arrived. That is no small thing. It may be one of the central human arts, because the world is full of mirrors that refuse reflection. They shine everywhere. They are elegant, efficient, seductive, and hungry. They promise answer and provide only absorption. And a person can disappear for years in such brightness. But a true mirror, even a rough one, gives the face back. And sometimes that is the beginning of salvation.